It's clear there's a lot of interest in climate change in the Biden administration. And I'm wondering how that'll impact the ETF business. Some in the SEC already have made it clear they want to make inquiries with companies about what their climate change policies are. This is what I call a real nudge. It's not saying you're violating anything, but we're saying, hey, what are you guys doing, even if there aren't any? So I'm wondering how all this sort of plays into the ETF space.
Well, there's no question that the Biden administration will be much more favorable towards ESG investing and ESG concerns than the current Trump administration. I think that's relatively non-controversial to say that. The question is whether or not investor demand continues to be there. Everything that we're seeing suggests that investor demand will continue to be there, whether it's from the millennial wealth transfer, whether it's just high net worth individuals looking to do something a little different with their money. ESG is rapidly being recognized not just as a values expression, but as a risk management tool. And I think risk management is where ESG is going to find its really strong legs over the next 2 to 3 years.
Harry, you want to weigh in here? You feel the same way?
Yeah, I agree with what Dave said. And I think what's really important about the ESG space when it comes to ETFs is a lot of firms have made allocations in their models to the ESG funds. So as people are putting money in the models, they're automatically investing into these ESG ETFs. So some people probably don't even realize they have them already. So it's a big part of these models now, and it's just going to be a constant cash flow in. So you're just going to see more and more assets go into the space.
Yeah. Jan, I wonder if you could weigh in on sort of ETF trends in 2021. I just want to stay on the ESG space. I'm wondering about things like diversity. I mean, we saw NASDAQ, we saw Adena Friedman come out very aggressively a few weeks ago and say, hey, we want more boardroom diversity, essentially. I'm not sure she made it a condition of listing on the NYSE or they'd kick you out if you didn't, but they made it pretty clear that's what they're looking for. So now we see climate change and it seems like boardroom diversity. These are two really big issues. Is this a real ongoing trend? ESG certainly appeared in 2020 as a major trend.
Yeah, look, I think that I focus on the E or environment and ESG because I think there's much more of a consensus around that. And we call it the energy transition, which isn't just 21 and 22. This is about a 10 or 20-year trend of movement away from fossil fuels. And so we see that in every major jurisdiction, in Europe, in the U.S., and in China now, which doesn't get a lot of credit or a lot of attention. But I think that's a big trend as well. And they keep pulling their deadlines closer. So there's no doubt that there's going to be an environmental transition I think, over the next decade or two. I think it's hard to put into a formula. And so I think active management can add a lot of value here. But that's kind of how I see it. It's absolutely a major trend. We talk about it a lot with clients.
Yeah. Dave, I heard you mention two other trends, ETF themes for 2021. Number one, the hunt for income. And number two, infrastructure. Once again, another, we've been here before story. Tell me about the hunt for yield and how we're going to find it. And number two, how can we turn this into the year for infrastructure? What scenario happens where that actually becomes a real story and we don't just bring it up again and nothing happens?
Well, the hunt for yield has been active now for a couple of years. I think what was really transitional in 2020 is we saw a lot of what I would call alternative income vehicles really come into their own. I'll highlight a couple. One of Jan's own funds, ANGL, which looks to get recently downgraded investment grade bonds into a sort of one individual bucket. Historically, that's been a strategy that's worked. If you look back over the last year or two, that strategy is throwing off 3 to 4% on an SEC yield basis and beating both the liquid and the junk market by about 2% last year. So that type of alternative income approach has really worked. We've also seen products that use options to extract income from the equity markets. Those have been very successful. We got a lot of those types of products filed already to launch next year. I think you'll see a lot of discussion around things like preferreds and REITs. A lot of people bottom fishing real estate right now. I think all of those are going to continue to be trends. I think when we're thinking forward to next year, you have to ask yourself, what can the Biden administration get done, assuming we end up with deadlock, which I think is the sort of the median case outcome. And in a deadlock environment, infrastructure is one of the only things they can probably get strong bipartisan support for, helps boost that big G government spending, which is sort of one of the places we haven't had the kind of response we would expect from government. It's really been in aid, not in government direct spending outside of the narrow cases of the vaccine. I think this is a real opportunity. There are a bunch of great funds in the space, and I think we'll see a lot of traction probably coming into the second quarter.
Jan, you and your entire organization made their bones in the commodity space, particularly gold, way back when. Want to give us 30 seconds on the gold outlook for 2021?
Listen, I think investors want alternatives. They're very concerned about the huge government stimulus of early 2020 that got us out of the kind of coronavirus financial freefall that we were going through. But that's, as Dave was talking about, the income part of people's portfolio is really suffering in this low interest rate environment, and they're looking at gold as an alternative. Gold does well in the low interest rate environment. So all-time highs last year, and I think that continues. But I'd also own some Bitcoin as well if you can. That's our diversification hypothesis.
Love it.
You're nothing if not diversified, Jan. You and your firm have managed to diversify out of gold for many years. I respect you for your ability to morph into new areas.